Yeah. Let me take you back to the place where we grew. It was more than just a track. In the schoolyard vibes where legends were made. Boys turned to men in the games that we played. Under the sun, life's lessons came raw. Every challenge faced made us stronger for sure. Running through the dirt with our dreams in the race. Competing for respect, every heart was in place. Those playground rules, they became our creed. From basketball courts to the fields of speed. We hustled and flowed with every passing day. Learning how to stand up when life's in the way. In the schoolyard, that's where it began. Brotherhood forged, hand in hand. Through sweat and pain, through laughter and tears, we connected for life.
Welcome to another episode of The Yard with yours truly, Chris Pender. That was for you, Mike, since you I know you need to hear the whole song, right?
Well, that's 2 weeks in a row we got a new song on. Sounds good.
It ain't new. You keep saying it's new.
I mean, I like that. I mean, Mike Franklin, 32nd and Burks, right across the street from the schoolyard, and got my brothers on the phone on the call with us, and I love you all.
All right. Vincent Scott,
Every day.
hashtag every day is what, Tommy?
Saturday.
You know it.
Every day is Saturday.
Every day.
Tommy Maurice Franklin, Mike Franklin's biological, Chris Penn and Vincent Scott. Love them to death, brothers to the end. We had many fights and stayed together, and we got together for most of us for over 60, almost 60 years. So.
Yeah.
Man, we had to write down your intro because you change it every time, man. You can't even keep up. Yeah, Maurice. It's funny because growing up, I never heard you use your middle name. No,
I didn't either. I didn't even know it till he said it.
I knew it, but I never heard you use it.
You never hear me use mine.
Well, mine is Edward.
Okay, that's right. That's good. I know you're Alexander, Chris.
Mine is too long, man. Like,
And mine, I don't think my mom and dad really know what my middle name was. Or is.
What?
Well, I had an uncle. He's the slowest talking man in the world. And he told my mom, I think you should name him Abel. And I told my mom, I said, y'all, he wouldn't finish talking. Y'all just said he thought he said Abel. And I said, that's not my middle name. Y'all just don't know what my middle name is.
Wait a few more minutes.
I can see my dad. Just let's get about here. I ain't got time to hear this slow
That's hilarious. Yo, but we started this off with laughter, which is cool. We're gonna talk about self-care. We kind of, because we talked about mental health, we talked about going to the doctor. I want to kind of capture the whole thing, and I tell you why. There's a guy that I used to work with. We share the same office and everything. He's been out for about a month. He committed suicide over the weekend.
Oh
wow!
And it's crazy because he was the kind of person you saw like he was never really down. We would smile. We would talk in the office. He just always wanted to help people. He just was that guy. We talk about fatherhood. We talk about all kinds of stuff, man. He went out because he said he was having some issues with his mom recently passed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And he was struggling with that. But there's some other things I learned going on. And the thing that's really scary for me that hit me hard was like yesterday I was shook because like 2 weeks ago we were texting. And his last two texts from me were one. He said he explained to me he just got out of a psychiatric hospital. Somebody committed him because he needed to be committed. He said they did the right thing, but he was being healed. Two, he said he was going to buy my book for his kids, my children's book. And then last thing he said was because I sent him the same devotion. I said, I want to thank you for the devotions because you led me back to the Lord. And I was thinking about him yesterday morning on my way into the office. Saying I got to reach out. When I got in, I found out. And I see it because I think about the numerous number of people we may pass.
Yeah.
And we don't know what's going on.
Wow. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And as men, we say we okay for everything.
Yeah.
I remember I knew I was hurt, and somebody said, "You okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. Meanwhile, I'm like, "Oh man, I'm in serious pain here. I'm hurting." And I just think so. I want to talk about it because I think we need to talk about it. Because even when I talk to young people, real quick, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to young people about depression, and a lot of black boys don't have anybody to talk to. They don't,
Yeah.
or their dads tell them is weak.
And that's weak to tell them that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Actually.
yeah.
That's sad.
And I think
Yeah.
he was from the Philippines, but I think for people of color, there's another layer to it. Mike and we were talking about before everybody got on here because we not only do we deal with the regular stuff, but we got to deal with sometimes with being judged by color, preparing our kids for racism, which is almost
Yeah.
we do, try to protect them from things that that the world's with them. That's different. Like, and we'll get into it. I used to tell people, I used to work with this guy. He was well, he don't see what the difference is because he don't see race. And I use the same explanation. You can tell your kids to run to the cops when you're in trouble. I can't tell my boys to run to the cops when they're in trouble.
Right.
Because if it's the wrong cop, get shot. He ain't gonna yeah. And I think some people who don't look like us don't get that.
No, not to linger on that, but I remember when I was working in Amtrak, I went to 30th Street one day and I did everything illegal. I was at 29th and Market. The light turned red. So, where the cabs come out of 30th Street?
Yeah.
I pulled up right there, blew my horn, made 3 cabs back up because I saw a parking spot over there on the side. I didn't want to go all the way around because I knew I would have missed it. So they backed up and I came around going the wrong way and I parked. I looked over, Pennsylvania State Trooper sitting right there. So I saw him grab his hat, turn his lights on, and he walked over to me and he saw my badge. He said, "Oh, you're a fan Amtrak?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know why I came over?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Tell me." I said, "Well, I made that illegal left turn in here, and then I blew my horn. I made them cabs back up so I wouldn't miss this spot." He said, "Oh, you admitted that." So he said, "But since you work here, don't do it again. I'm out here a lot." One of my colleagues came up to him, and he was white, and he was like, "What are you doing? You got nothing better to do than to do this." And I'm like, John, he said he's not gonna give me a ticket. And John just kept cursing. And the cop was saying, sir. So I'm looking like, sir. I mean, he
Yeah.
called that cop so we walking in the building. I said, John, he didn't give me a ticket. He didn't give you a ticket. Every time they pull me over, I get a ticket. I said, you talk to him like this all the time? He said, oh yeah, that's my legal
That's why
right.
you got a ticket. That's why you
Well,
got a ticket.
he said, that's your right, Mike. I said, no, John. I said, did you see Rodney King thing? Oh yeah, he didn't listen to the. I said, you thought you were listening to him? He said, well, that's my right. I can talk. I said, well, we don't have them rights. I said, the Rodney King incident is an everyday occurrence in America.
You should
It just
never feel that you had a right to talk to somebody any
anybody
kind of
like that.
way
Right,
just
right.
because they job. Common courtesy and respect is due to
Right.
everybody.
And I told him, I said, we ride with our kids in the car. We say, all right, everybody got their seatbelts on. We know we got all our credentials. But the cop pulling up on the left, don't look to the right. Don't look to the left. He on the right, look to the left. Don't look to the right. I said, y'all really sitting there with no seatbelts on. Y'all kids roll the window down. Look, they're officer friendly. He sounded the horn, he waving. I said, we don't get that same courtesy. And
But
they
I
don't
think,
understand that.
but that ties into part of I, I think the self care that we need that we don't talk about. That stress of, we got to be careful all the time.
Yeah.
I remember I lived in Chestnut Hill, right? And the guy came to clean my fireplace, and he said, "Well, I'm sorry, but we only take cash." So I run across the street, and I'm running back, with the money in my pocket and everything. I'm running, and this old lady jumped up on the car. Literally jumped up on the car. Yeah. Yo, what you doing? I thought you were coming after me. Like, yo, I'm thinking, yo, yeah.
Like, really?
You
I,
wasn't even thinking about it. And she
Yeah,
said, black man running. Uh-oh, you doing something?
Yeah, for
I
real.
didn't think about that
And that's true. You got to be careful.
Yeah.
You want to
So-
dash off to catch a bus, it might catch a bullet.
Right.
So all the stuff that we deal with, what's your first line of self care? How do you, not be angry? How do you not be frustrated?
You have to say, I got to take care of myself and I got to be above Not saying you're above nobody, but you got to put yourself where you got to think that I got to watch what I say, watch what I do, watch how I even my body gestures. Because
Yeah.
if I do something like that, I'm at an uproar. And I could just be like, hey, how y'all doing? And we have to watch. And it's sad, it's not fair, but we were all raised that way and we had to raise our kids like that.
Yeah. And I mean, like you say, it's by all means, it's not right,
Hmm.
whatsoever. If I feel like I need to run down the street to catch a bus, then I should be able to run without thinking that I done stole something, anything
Hmm.
like that, just by the color of my skin. And it's crazy, to protect yourself against that. Because, you run down the street, you better have your head on a swivel. You know what I mean? All right, I'm good.
Hmm.
I would say, Chris and I we belong to a group, King, and what they teach us is to have a vision statement. So you have their vision statement that it's like your creed that and we have it written down someplace. People have it on their refrigerator, some people have it in their bedroom, whatever. And it's just a plan. It's a plan
Mhm.
to do the right things and help you, and assist you, I think, in these areas, where, all right, I got a plan. I know my rights, I know who I am, I know who I want to be, I know where I want to go.
Right.
So you think about all those things as you write your vision statement up, and you kind of look at it every day, so you can say, all right, I know who I am, and I know what I want to be. So I got to do this in order to do the things I need to do. So I
Okay.
think that's one approach that
Yeah.
It's a good approach, but look at all of us. We talked about this on our own jobs. Somebody walk in our office and want to speak to a manager and go talk to one of the
Yeah.
workers and to look
Yeah.
at us and go, "Oh, I didn't know you
No.
didn't look like you should be running this office."
Yeah.
Yeah. How am I supposed to look?
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
You know what I mean? You
But
know,
so what does self care look like? Because what we just talked about for me, it kind of becomes an added stress because there's times when there's a lot of stuff going on. I got to deal with that.
yeah.
That doesn't always happen when you're in your best.
I
But,
mean, we're so busy taking care of everybody else. A lot of times we neglect ourselves,
Yes,
oh,
yes.
I definitely agree with
you
that.
know. And what I've found, just getting older, like I said, and I've mentioned before, I got people that I can talk to about anything, you know, any and everything that's bothering me. So, I mean, I'm not holding it in. Yep, we lost Chris.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
can't lose the host.
I don't know what happened there.
It's like we can't lose the host.
I can't name the cable company, but they're working on
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, so it is important to not have to hold stuff in if it's bothering you because it can eat you, eat you alive. And just everybody don't handle stress the same. Everybody don't handle death or loss the same. People can get feel pressure and don't treat it the same. Somebody might get pressure and look at it and be like, all right. Some people might, oh my God, or they're gonna fire me, or they gonna, you never know how they're gonna react.
But you said something that was interesting because some people I talk to is not the fact that they don't have anybody, is the fact that their pride gets in the way. You
Yeah,
know, yeah, I don't want to let Mike know what time, Vince know, because I'm gonna
yeah.
feel like they may think I'm less than a man.
Well,
It comes up a
the
lot.
thing is your pride. It can get in the way. It can get in the way, and to be prideful enough to know that I'm normal and I'm talking to somebody who really cares about me. Put that pride to the side.
Yeah.
You know what I
Because
mean?
that,
Put
like
that
you said,
pride to
that
the
causes a
side.
lot of stress. A lot of stress.
We
I used to
joke
tell
about we joke about therapy a lot. You know, I tell Chris he need therapy. Mike need therapy. Vincent y'all all need therapy. I'm in therapy. But
I
yeah,
need therapy. I need therapy because of y'all.
yeah. Well, and that may be the case.
Yeah.
Whoever causes you to need that therapy, to reach out and and talk to somebody that could help you. We need to focus.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tom, I'm actually required to talk to a psychologist, going through the situation that I'm going through.
Right.
And they was like, you seem to be okay. You seem to be taking everything well. Like, yeah.
Well, you got a good spirit. You have a good attitude with your
Yes.
conditions and
Yeah.
stuff. And that's good. You need that. But I mean, and that's good that you're able to do that, because a lot of
Yeah.
people, oh no, it's back, and they stress themselves out. You put yourself in a position where you say, I got to deal with it, and I'm gonna beat this. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna live as long as I can. I'm gonna do the best that I can do.
I
And
mean, the
I
thing
know,
is, at all of our age now, we're looking at extending our life. We're looking at longevity and being here as long as we can possibly be. I don't think it's anybody out here that's saying, well, I got 60 in, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Nah, you
Not
know
in
what I
this
mean?
group. Not in this
Yeah.
group.
But I give you the perfect example, Vincent. When I was going through my bout with prostate cancer, when I got to the end, they told me the same thing. Yo, you need to get the support group. We can find you a group. And I did, just what Mike said, I said, man, I don't need no support group, man. I got this, man. I'm like, look, man, it's a piece of cake, man.
Yeah.
They've been explaining the process to me, how, what can happen, depression, things like that. That ain't gonna happen to me. And it did.
Well,
And when it
you know
happened,
what?
yeah.
Go ahead.
But when it
It's all right.
happened, no, that's cool. When it happened, it took me a while before I said anything. I just kind of isolated myself. I kept to myself, and I kept saying, it's going to be better tomorrow. It's going to be better tomorrow, better tomorrow. Next, tomorrow is like a week. And then it goes into 2 weeks. And luckily I was home at the time because I wasn't back to work yet. But then you realize, and like, yo, you've been like that for a month.
Yeah.
Time going by.
Yeah.
But you know what I realized, Chris, going through the process? Yeah, you going to group therapy may actually help somebody else more than it helps you.
Oh, I
That's
agree.
Because your story and somebody seeing you being able to share, might spark them to be like, you know what, he right, he absolutely right.
Well, you're right. You're right, Vince. Because, like I said, I'm in therapy, but there's times when me and my therapist, psychologist, is talking, and I look up and he's in tears. I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you crying?
I don't know. I got a
and I
question.
wasn't there with him. I didn't hit him, so I wasn't at
I'm like,
that.
wait a minute, am I paying you? And sometimes he'll tell me, he says, you're such a positive reinforcement for
Right.
me,
Right.
and you help me and help me with my next patients.
Yeah.
And I still feel as though he's helping me as well. But yes, when you're talking to somebody, you're helping yourself, and you could be helping somebody else.
See,
Yes,
me,
absolutely.
I look at it this way. If he crying, I'm like, am I that jacked up?
Yeah.
Yo, am I that jacked up? He crying. Yo, this dude.
And Chris has been on more than one occasion, so I'm looking at it.
You got to
But
think about it. In his profession, he probably used to hearing so many people that's down in the dumps and dragging, and it's probably refreshing to him. And he just like, man, this is refreshing to me.
Yeah.
To hear this kind of attitude. I just wish a lot of people had this kind of attitude about life in general.
And we do as a group, I'm talking about, because all of us have good willpower. We fighters, and I don't mean we out here punching and beating people, but we have that mental toughness that we can overcome a lot of stuff. Because we all talked about stories with our own health and how we beat certain things. I had a surgery. The doctor told me 85% people don't make it. I said 85 don't make it. That means 15% do. Oh, I'm a fighter. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And he said, what about your family? I said, I can't tell them, because if I tell my family it's an 85% chance I'm not going to make it, they're going to say, Mike, we're not going to co-sign for that. But I said, 15% chance? Oh.
Yeah. I like my chances.
Right. I did. And he told me the next day.
Nobody know you like you. You know what I mean?
He told me the next day, he said, I'm so glad you let us do that surgery. He said, because you wouldn't have been here another 6 months. You literally stole life from death. I said, I know. I'm a fighter.
On that note, there's a lot of guys that I encounter who are in survival mode. They're not living
Right.
it too. They're in survival mode because so much is going around them. It's like every day's a struggle, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they feel like, they really feel like they're isolated. They're by themselves. I joke about this all the time. Like, I'm gonna get a shirt so I do understand, because everybody says I don't understand. That's what the first thing everybody say to you. Like, their situation is unique situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing more and more people, even younger people, they say that I'm in survival mode.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, in communication and talking with people, you find out that your situation ain't that much different than everybody else's
Somebody
situation.
else's, right. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And, being able to share, you might get a tidbit of information that might allow you to say, you know what? I think I'm gonna do the same thing. That sounds like a good idea. Let me try that out.
So let me ask you a question: why do men suffer in silence? Why do men just say, like, I go back to my friend from work,
Because we think we
I,
still cavemen.
yeah, but Vince, I do, I agree with that. But it troubles me because that's a big decision to say that,
Yeah.
I'm doing it, and I think,
Well, we know we the head of our household,
That is.
and everybody comes. Chris, Vince, Tommy, Mike. What
Yeah.
about this? Can I do this?
Yeah.
Can we do that? Can we do that? How are we going to do that? And we take on that role, and we take it with pride.
Yeah.
So we realize I have to be okay, and a lot of times we might not be okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I know. I had a friend of mine that told me, he said, no matter how old your kids get, they still going to look at you as that person.
Mm-hmm. That's a fact.
And I found that out the other day. My daughter called me from Radnor and said, a car wouldn't start. She told me what was going on. I said, well, call your roadside assistance and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be there. I got there, took care of it, jumped the car, boom, we gone. She felt safe. She
Mm-hmm.
knew I
Right.
was on the way.
Because
She felt safe.
daddy got it. Daddy
She
got it.
know somebody coming and know what they're going to do to get
Mm-hmm.
me out of here.
but
You
when do
know?
we realize? When do we realize? Even Superman had kryptonite.
Yeah.
Even Superman had to
I
be
don't
Clark
think we
Kent once
think
in a
we're
while.
Superman. I think we
Yeah.
feel like, okay, I gotta be strong because I got these dependent people that's dependent on me. And just because they are adults, we still take on that role, even though they're independent, they pay their
Yeah.
own bills. We always say, just
Yeah.
in case, just
Just
in
in
case.
case. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't only have to protect your own thoughts and ideals and, situations. You got to think about them too. And the thing is, because that's how we not grew up, but how we proceeded into manhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Being an adult male and having a family where everybody relied on you, that thought process may be very easy for us, but somebody that's not used to them, it's gonna drive them crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna
Well,
drive. I mean, go ahead, Tom.
yeah, like you're saying, yeah. I think we raised our families like our parents raised us,
Mm-hmm.
to some degree that we have everybody may need a shoulder to cry on. So we
Hmm.
always feel that we have to be that shoulder to cry on. And to answer Chris' question, why men is in silence, it's still all about the pride. And it's
Yeah,
also about that responsibility that you take on, that I have to be that shoulder for them to
Mm-hmm.
cry on. And if they see me crying, that's
yeah,
that may hurt them. That may weaken them. Oh wow, he's
yeah,
crying. They may not understand and say, okay, I can't go to him. He cried too. So I think they look at us as being somewhat
yeah,
invincible. But
yeah.
yeah,
We
it's
that we
hard to
that last line of defense.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first time I
So,
saw my dad cry is when his dad died. And that
yeah,
was like,
Yeah,
1966.
and I was like, you got tears? I'm,
Yeah.
I'm you know,
yeah. You like,
I'm 5 years old. I'm 6 years
man,
old.
He's
me
fine.
crying. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Mhm.
You
Well,
got,
now
right, you got tears.
the last time I saw my dad cry, Tommy was right there. He beat me and Tommy. Then he came upstairs and told us it hurt him more than it hurt me and Tommy combined. I looked at my legs. I looked at my dad, Tommy legs. looked at my leg again. I looked at Tommy's leg. I looked at my dad. I said, Daddy, you said this beating hurt you more than it hurt me and Tommy combined? He was crying. He said, yeah. I said, Daddy, you in an awful lot of pain.
But I think, but I do think, and I think we do think we Superman. We don't say it, but we think we got to always be there. We think
Do we think
we got
we're
to be the Rocket
Superman?
Gibraltar.
Or do we think we're just protectors, providers?
We are, but Mike, we think we have to fix everything. We don't walk around saying we're Superman, but we think I got to take care of this. We never say.
But didn't you think that as a kid too?
Yeah, but as a kid, I wasn't responsible for other people. So,
but we had
that.
That same mentality.
Yeah, I agree, and that's a blessing and the curse. It's a blessing and the curse because it helped us competitively. But sometimes you got to realize, like they say on the airplane, when that mask comes down, you got to put yours on first. Sometimes you got to take a step back and take care of yourself first. Like I remember I was sick one time, and I'm home, and my son-in-law buys this charger. And it's snowing like I said, don't buy the charge. It's real world driving. Anyway, it's snowing like crazy. I clean my driveway. I'm in here sitting in front of the fireplace looking at TV, and my daughter called. I got to go get him. Now didn't have to go get him, but like Vince said, because it was my daughter,
gotta go. That's Daddy. I gotta go.
Yeah, so I think we don't say we're Superman, but we and our kids get used to it. Like you said, Vince told the story before when he got sick and the look on his daughter's face. I know when I told my kids that I had cancer, it was the same way. Like, you really? Like, how could that happen to you? Yeah, like that's not supposed to happen to you. So I think we don't say it, and it's a good thing we do because we really care. Some people don't care, but I'm not saying the bad way. I'm not saying it that way, but we kind of, like if something happened, we there. Like Mike, I remember you two last time I was over your house. You were talking about it when you said, little Mike got sick. You got in your car and drove to Baltimore. You ain't even think about it. You ain't say, yo, I gotta do this. I gotta do this.
It ain't a second thought.
Right. Andre was in the hospital down in on Williamsburg, Virginia. I hopped on. He called me, told me he's in the hospital. I'm on my way. That's just what we do, though.
Yeah. And I agree. It's a great thing. But at what point do you do something for yourself? At one point do you step back and say, man, I got to take a step back and I got to make sure I'm okay. Yeah.
I think, well, I'm speaking for myself, but I think most of us always think I'm okay. Yeah. Even though I know I do. I always feel like I can beat that. I'm good.
Yeah. I'll say this, Chris. You might want to cover your ears. For all the retired people out there, I mean, being retired, even though I really loved my job, I mean, it was like such a weight was lifted that I feel like I maybe added 15 to 20 years onto my life. Like,
that's a fact. I truly believe that.
Yes. I mean, the thing is like, your job, you know what you're doing, you're good at it. It's not a burden to you, but actually it is kind of a burden. Just getting up and being in the rat race every day, it's kind of like,
But it speaks volumes.
Tommy said, Mike, now that we retired, do you realize we was in jail for 30 plus years for work? Because now even though we could wear a shirt and tie, a suit jacket, a sweater, we didn't have a dress code, but we had to dress a certain way. Yeah, and you had to be there at a certain time. And you had all these people that depended on, once again, you while you were there. And now if you don't feel like getting up that morning, you just let it. Not you, Chris.
But you know what? It also depends on who you are, because there's some people who can't retire because they've allowed their job to define them. They've allowed their job to define them. That's why they get up, and that's what they do. So it's different aspects of it. I know people. I know a bunch of people who retire and they go take another job.
I never understood that. I never understood that. If I was going to get another job, I would have stayed with Amtrak.
My cousin told me a story about a guy, and this happened recently in like the last month or so. He worked for Tasty Cake, and this guy was working doubles. He in our age bracket, working doubles and working all this overtime because he wanted to take this trip out of the country and this, that, and the other. And he worked so much that when it was time to go, he made it to the airport. He died at the airport.
Oh. Oh, wow.
You know, I mean, the thing is, as you get older, you got to dial it back. You know
You know, my
that.
bosses used to get mad at me when we had new hires coming. I would talk to them. You know what I would tell them? This job provides your livelihood. It does not provide your life. Don't put
Yes.
this job ahead of your own health or your, and they would be telling people about attendance. I said, no, you got to come to work, do your job. I said, but once or twice a year, you want to take a Saturday off because, we 24/7 and take your kids to Great Adventure or whatever,
Yeah.
mark off. That's what, I'm not saying abuse it, but your job provides your livelihood. It does not provide your life. And a lot of
Right.
people might be wrong. I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. We get people every year. We get 2, 3 people go out on mental stress. Oh
Yeah.
my God, if a train crash, I said, don't let yesterday use up tomorrow.
But
Yeah.
You
Mike,
come to work,
it's
do the best that you can do, and be the best that you can be.
but it's
I
all
think
about perspective and what you're exposed to.
Hmm.
And some people are taught, you know, it is their livelihood. Some people, for instance,
It provides your livelihood.
people, but some people are taught that it is. So, for instance,
yeah,
you heard people say this. Forget about liking the job. Get a good job with benefits. Don't care if you like it or
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
That used to be the mantra for so many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
all was brought up like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get
So,
a job with good
But I
benefits or
mean, look,
whatever.
to have a job that you actually like, and you
yeah,
enjoy going to work, and you enjoy being there doing the job, that's a godsend, man. That
yeah,
is like
it is.
I felt blessed doing my
yeah.
job.
Mhm.
I worked around people that I really like, and I enjoyed what I was doing. I was proud of what I
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree with Mike when he said don't make it your life, but I agree with Chris too because there's a
did. Yeah.
lot of people that and Mike, we
Yeah.
know we have relatives work
We,
60
we
years on a
we
job.
got a cousin that died.
Right, work 60 years on a job. You can't get him to retire. He retired. He don't last a week.
Well,
But
Yeah.
he made it almost a month.
well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I know people that die like they say who somebody said somebody that died at the airport was that Vince.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
somebody go ahead and
Well.
they work they make the job so much of their life that they can't live without it. What I'm gonna do?
Yeah.
Retire and
Hmm.
die? Is
Yeah,
that all?
Yeah,
and,
But
and,
you know
and that's
what?
what they
I
normally
mean,
But you
say
know,
too.
I've
it's a
seen
lot.
people. I've
Go
seen
ahead.
people literally age when they stop working.
Yeah.
Woo.
Literally, you see them, and they're like 60 days later, look like they aged 10 years.
Yeah. I
And
tell
I've
you
seen the
what.
opposite. I've seen
Yeah,
that, but I've seen the
yeah.
opposite. When you see somebody retire and say, "My God, you look like you 10 years younger."
Vincent looked
Yeah.
like he looked when he was in the schoolyard.
Yeah, but,
All
we're
this
talking
stuff,
about the
all this
people.
gray hair.
Yeah, but we're talking
But
about
But
take
people.
that away, you look
but you know
identical.
what? But you know what though? You also have a lot of people out there that retire and actually it's like a couple years later, it's like, man, maybe 1 or 2 years passing. Oh yeah, such and such died.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
I've had
we had
coworkers. One guy, he retired. We gave him a little party at the office, and he went home and committed suicide.
No,
oh,
I
that's
mean,
that's
crazy.
that's
That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
no, but see, I think it's crazy to us, but to some people, their jobs become their life. They're identified by their jobs.
Yeah.
They don't get what
Yeah.
Mike just said. They think
I never,
they,
yeah, never,
they don't
never
That's
get
get
why
what
I
it
Mike
said
just
what
said.
confused.
Mike was saying is true. If everybody kind of
Yeah,
took that attitude, I think
Yeah.
they would be a lot better. That if they, but that people just not going to take it
Right,
because
right.
they have no control over what their
And,
life
and,
is done for them.
and a
Their
lot of
job is
people are
done for them.
afraid. They're afraid to speak up. I don't want to get fired. I don't want to. It took me 10, 15, 20 years, whatever it took for them to get what they call a good job or a job with benefits or whatever. See, we were all fortunate. We came out of high school, went to college, and got good jobs, decent jobs. A lot of people, they work at McDonald's, Wawa, Walmart, and they 40, 50 years old. And even though they are, still a job, but it don't have the benefits that we had. It don't have, it don't make the income. And we take things like that for granted because I know like my wife, she'll say, I don't understand how people can't. I said, Carol, because people don't make the money that we made or the money that
Yeah.
you made. I
Yeah.
said, it's the difference. What you talk about, well, oh, that trip only cost this. That might be a whole month's salary.
Yeah.
And so they can't do that. I said, you got to look at things like that.
But as we because I want to stay on self-care, but to your point, Mike, I think it's what you're exposed to. We are a product of our environment, and some of us we evolve in our environment, and some of us we stay there. It's like the person who just won't leave North Philly. They go away, get a college, everything, and they just go right back to doing the same thing.
Because do you know the average person in the world, this is the true statistic, have never been more than 300 miles from where they were born.
Why?
Now they might go 300
Yeah.
east, 300 west, 300 north, south,
Yeah.
but they
Get
never
out the city,
been,
get out the city and get lost.
right.
This brings me
Oh
to
my
my
God.
your self-care. I think is pretty cool the way you travel.
hmm
You know, where you expose your stuff. How did you get into that? How did you just wake up one day and decide, I'm going to start taking 200 trips?
Yeah. I mean, but I was doing that even when I was working. They used to get on me at work. You know, you had to put out your vacation sheet, and I would put my weeks in, and they go, Mike, you don't have that many weeks available. But that's the I'm letting. I said, but that's the weeks I'm not going to be here. I would tell them. I said I would go in my boss office when they give out the vacation, and I take the sheet that I submitted to him. I always made a copy of it. I said, Charlie, there's a mistake here. What do you mean there's a mistake? I said, there's the weeks that you think I'm not going to be here. Look at page 1. That's my original page. Look at page 2. That's your page. Look at page 3. That's the page that I'm actually going to do. Page 1 and 3 match. Yours is the week you think I'm not going to be here. These are the weeks I'm definitely not going to be here. And the guys, they still call me and they say, man, how did you do that? I said, because from week 1, I didn't let them dictate to me what I can't do. I was I've been that way all my life.
Well, see, you know your value. You know your
sorry?
value. You know your value. A lot of people don't.
Right.
They don't. And fear has a lot to do with it. And as we continue in self-care, how do you get like that? I know how, but I mean, for people watching the thing, man, how do you get to the point where, because you prioritize your self-care? Most people don't. That's like down the list for people.
Yeah.
I think, sometimes I say I don't value myself, because Tommy and I talk about this a lot. We'll go to the hospital when we should have been there last month. And we'll go, I'm hurting, and we won't say it to each other, nobody. And then we get to the point, I better go to the hospital because this has been hanging on for a couple of weeks, couple of months.
Yeah.
And that's why I admit I'm crazy. Because Tommy, I go to emergency, I'm next. I don't care how many people they got in there. I don't care what their conditions are. As soon as I walk in, and they go, I was here for 13 hours. That's your fault. You came to watch TV. I came to see a doctor. And now there are exceptions. Tommy told me about what happened one time. He said he was at the hospital, somebody came in shooting. I said, help the lady out. She need help worse than I do. But other than that.
Well, I don't think that's not knowing our value. I think it comes back to being that schoolyard. We just think we can everything. When I got cancer, that's the first time I realized I wasn't invincible. In my mind, it was nothing I couldn't overcome. In my mind, I would get sick. Somebody else get sick. They knocked out for weeks, man. 2 days later, I'm back to normal. You know what? So I had that mentality.
You say that I agree. Because when my lower intestines ruptured, I was in the hospital, and my mom and all them, my kids, my wife, they crying. And I remember Carol and Morgan, they came in. Morgan, Daddy, you are? I said, I'm good. She said, how you say you good? They say you in intensive care. I said, y'all, this was a blessing in disguise. Because we were supposed to put stuff in storage that day.
Yeah.
And we were moving into this house. We were moving out of old house. And I was putting like refrigerators and freezers in storage. And I said, if I know me, I'd have been on the back end of that refrigerator or that dresser. And then my lower intestine ruptured, I would have fell out. I'd have passed out. And the refrigerator or a dresser fall on top of me. We don't need an autopsy. He died because the refrigerator fell on him. And I said, I'm going to be okay. I said, because it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yes, absolutely.
And you heard me say, what you say about I said 85% positive.
Selfish.
And you said it's under
I'm on the other side.
No, I truly believe, that old cliche, your glass is half full. My glass is always half full.
And I agree.
Yeah.
So Vincent, so you just got finished talking about how it's like therapy for you. What are some
Yeah.
things you do for self-care now,
No,
other than
I
everyday
always,
therapy?
well, the thing is, I mean, just going to the gym right now, getting a chance to relax and, go sit in the whirlpool, go sit in the sauna, just, caring for putting me first. But then, it's time you come home, you go back to the rat race.
Mhm.
Wife be home about 4 o'clock. You know, that's kind of when my day start. Then I got to share myself with other people at that point.
So what about
But
you, Tom? I'm
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah,
for me, it's all as meditation. That I lean on meditation
yeah,
when I feel like I need self care, and like I talked about earlier about my vision statement. I learned to prioritize and put me first.
hmm
Before it was always, I gotta like take care of the family, and whatever. It was always, now it's like God then me. Again, you
Mhm.
got God, then you got to. Well, what do you got to do? And it's not easy because you talking about, they train you when you're on a plane crash, you put your mask on first and then you help other people. Uh, how many of us think that, if our children was there at whatever
They
age
going
they were,
yeah.
that
They're
we're
gonna
gonna
get
put
their
that
masks
mask,
on
we're
they're
gonna
gonna
put
first.
get
that
their
mask
mask
on
Yeah.
first.
first. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Right,
they're gonna
right.
get theirs
I know
first.
I'm
Yeah,
trained to me first, but
yeah,
me first mean, I'm not gonna put my mask on and my
yeah,
child don't make it.
But
yeah,
nobody tell you that. Because if you don't put your mask on, your child may not make it. Because you
Yeah, right.
won't
I
be
Right.
in the
understand
stadium.
that.
That's why they tell
And I
you that.
understand that. I'm just saying that's the
That's why they tell you.
mentality of me thinking that, yeah, I know I can't help them if I can't breathe myself.
well,
I'm not gonna be able to help them. But and so it's hard, and I know that's the right thing to do. It makes sense. I've been trained. I know about it.
yeah,
However, I just think that if it actually happened, I think my reactions is gonna be like, "Who?
Go
Okay,
get your kid. Go get
now let me
right.
get myself together. 'Cause
yeah,
And
I'm
that's a
not gonna
fact.
make it, and they don't make it. But
We
yeah,
were down
that's
in
just that putting yourself first is hard.
right because we were down in Florida several years ago, and Nicole, my daughter, she can't swim. Nicole, don't go past your waist. I look up, she way out, and I hear them blow a horn. Wah! So Carol said, "What's going on?" I said, "I don't know, somebody drowning." Then they blew the horn again. I said, "Oh, damn, that's Nicole!" And I took off running, and I beat the lifeguards to her. I got Nicole, I got her out the water, and I'm hitting her in the chest. And then she finally started coughing, water coming out of her nose and her mouth. Then the lifeguards get there. It was two of them. I said, I think she's okay. She's breathing and talking now. Let's get her back to shore. And I said, whoa, because I can't swim. I said, how I get out here? I'm so glad two lifeguards came out there. One had Nicole, the other one had me.
Look,
Yeah,
boy,
but I
that
think
daddy love, boy.
I still to the day don't know how I got that far out
Look,
in that
that
water and
that
got
daddy
Nicole
love,
out of it.
that daddy love is amazing.
Yeah. They said, let's get her back to shore. And I said, how I get out here?
You turned into a
Right there.
merman. Turned into a merman, and he understand.
Right.
Right. Right. You hear
but I
stories
Exactly.
think
about women lifting up cars, getting their children
Right.
from
When
Yeah,
they see their
underneath
child
cars.
underneath it. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
that's one of the things that I think we got to do better. We do because when I
Yeah.
first heard it, I said the same thing. But then I began to think about it. If I got my grandson next to me and something happens to me, nobody gonna save him. Everybody gonna
No.
be looking out for themselves. Everybody gonna be getting on you. So
yeah,
so I do get, and it is hard, but I do get the premise behind it, and I'm learning as I get older. Like I was talking to, cause I actually went to the doctor today, and I was talking to the nurse, man. So we were having some conversations about some different things, and I was like, man, I'm 65. I'll be 65 this year,
yeah.
and you think
November.
about it, that's huh?
I say in
Yeah,
November.
yeah. But when you think about it, man, that's a lot of years and a lot of miles.
Yeah.
And if you
Well, you
think
know
about it
what?
in terms of,
You look at the flip side. If you get your kids' mask on and you don't make it, I did my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And personally, I can speak for myself. I'm okay with that. But if I got my mask on and then my kids don't make it,
Oh yeah. That you'll
that'd be
never
hard. That'd
forgive
be
yourself.
hard to live
You'll
with. That'd be
never
hard to
forgive
live with.
yourself.
But I think you would have enough time to get the mask. I get the premise,
Yeah.
and I agree with Tommy. Is you can understand something, but when the pressure hits, you react the way you react. So you can all day long say, "Yeah, this is what I would do," you know. But when it happens, it happens. But I just think it is not all. Unfortunately, that's not all fathers. But in this group, it is. We put our kids first.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's going to be one hand putting a mask on, the other hand putting my mask on.
Well, Chris, Tommy, Vince, have you ever been on a cruise?
Yeah, I have.
Do y'all remember when you first started going on a cruise, you had all go to the muster station, everybody standing out
there,
with big heavy life jackets, and they tell you how to put it on and and they always say men and children and women first. And I always hold on, wait a minute. My family and me first. So one lady asked me, she says, "Well, it's ladies first." I said, "Lady, we will use you as a stepping stool. We will step right over you to get to that life."
If they come to that, you're right. I'm not gonna say, "Here, take my life jacket."
I'm the guy.
I think I'm the reason why they make you do it in your room now, and you just go and sign the paper and say that they don't have that big long.
But see, Mike, I'm the guy to say, if I'm on the back of the boat, I'm not going back to find my boat up at the front. It ain't happening.
Exactly. I'm getting off with the nearest life boat.
Somebody ain't on that boat.
Exactly. And see, but you nice to me.
Mister, you gotta get off the boat. Y'all losing time. Come on.
But so what are some of the things you guys do, man? Other than we talked about travel, we talked about working out the gym. For me, I like to read. I do. I like to read. I would sit back and read, listen to music. Too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This has become therapeutic for me. Doing the podcast and stuff. So what would you? Because there's a lot of guys who don't have therapeutic things to do.
Yeah. A lot of guys don't even understand what they like to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They may trip and fall into it one day and be like, "Oh, you know what? I really enjoyed that."
No plan.
Other people, they done been so structured and strict their whole life that they don't understand what really brings them joy.
A lot of people, change scares a lot of people. Just the fact to go, let me try this, let me do that. A lot of people don't want to take that chance.
Yeah, a lot of people are stressed. So I think my wife is one of those.
Good point. That's a good point.
And if you think about it, they put out an alert about flying. You know what I mean? Because of the war, what's going on in this world. They put an alert about it.
Yeah, we were just talking about that. Mike and I was just talking about that.
They make you think.
I had a trip that was canceled in July, this coming July. Well, they had where I could go there. They didn't have no flight back. And I was like, you really think I'm going to move over there?
You don't go and don't come back.
I'm going to tell you why. This is my theory. When we get back to self-care, I always believe if somebody take us hostage, they're not getting anything for us.
No.
They'll probably send more of us. So my theory is, look, man, we don't want him to come back. How many more in that plane? We just get rid of all of them. Yeah. Matter of fact, we got open seats. So the thing about self-care is funny. So, because I hear some people tell me they think it's selfish. And my response is, I think we all have to find, especially as we get older, we got to find time to be just a little bit selfish.
Sometimes you got to be selfish.
In order to be a good athlete, a good person, you have to have that me first attitude. Don't mean that you're selfish, because we all help people. We do things, but we know we have a standard. And that's what I mean when I say me first. It don't mean me first, like I don't care what you do. We try to bring people to our standard.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and then we are alpha males, all of us, and always have been. I'm talking about, I know I met Vince, you in kindergarten, Chris, you was in first grade when I met y'all. We were alpha men. We were alpha men then. That's
not me. I was quiet and laid back, man.
No,
most people know I was in the room.
I don't think I ever was quiet and laid back.
I think y'all just remember things differently. That's all.
I was quiet and laid back.
No, I was.
No,
weird, man.
Look, I'm quiet and laid back now.
Yeah, me too. I'm quiet, shy, and afraid to express my opinion.
Yeah, all right. When you sleep,
But you
you
know
probably
what?
wake,
The
you
thing,
probably
Common
wake up,
matters in
you
living.
probably wake up with an opinion. Man, I
I
had this
do.
dream.
the
I
thing
do.
is anytime we think that, you know, things are going wrong and we're having a hard time, I mean, social media allow you to look and see people that's having triple what you got, just having the horrible time that you would just like, man, if I was having that many problems in my life, I don't know what I'd do. It's
My grand,
always somebody doing worse.
Well, that's an
my
old
my
cliche. No matter
grandmother,
how bad you're doing, it's
yeah,
always somebody got it
Yeah.
worse.
my grandmother would always say, "Never say it can't get any worse." She just said it all the time. And
Yeah.
never
Hmm.
say it can't get any worse because it can. And she used to say
Well,
that.
you know that old saying that all the mothers told you, God will never put more on you
You
than you
can
can
handle.
handle.
That's true. That's true.
You know?
Yeah, but
And we all live in proof of that because we've lost loved ones and we think, why?
Yeah,
And yet we still persevering. We still
yeah,
moving forward. We still
and that
going.
was me yesterday because I think when the guy from work and then my two neighbors, when I first moved around here, Dana was one side and Mr. Jackson was the other side. We would be out howling across the yard, and everybody was because we all was from North Philly, so everybody would
Mhm.
laugh like y'all still think y'all in North Philly because we'd be screaming across
yeah.
the yard, back and forth, man. And they're both dead now. So I told my wife when I go out this summer for the first time, and we're gonna be out. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about that yesterday when I was thinking about my friend who committed suicide. That was in my head yesterday, like how quickly things can change. How quickly things can take. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the
And
thing is, even with that saying, it's going to change, but they going to remain the same because life is going to go on for
yeah.
everybody else.
Yep, that's true.
But if you're
That's
You know
not
what I
right
true.
mean?
mentally, and I thought it because when I first found out about, I asked myself the question like, what could be that bad that you would think about, just not being here anymore. And then I thought about it. Mike kind of touched on this earlier, and you said the same thing, Vincent. People experience things differently,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and some of the things that we think people should be able to overcome, they don't.
Yeah.
It's like sports. When I watch sports and I hear somebody let some fan get them off their game, I'm thinking like you crazy. You making $40 million, and this guy in the
Yeah,
Yeah.
third
yeah.
row, and you looking at him instead of playing the game.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, we ain't even play for $4.
Look up
Yo,
Metcalf.
I was watching something the other day, and they were showing a fan that was heckling LeBron James. Like, look at you. You ain't got no hair. He said, I got plenty of money, though. I said,
Yeah, that hurt. That one punched that dude in the mouth. Like, ooh.
yeah, that may go right over your head.
Hmm.
Well, Mike, you about to say something about somebody?
No, when you talking about making them heckling, remember Metcalf with Pittsburgh? He punched that
Yeah,
fan, and then he ended up missing the next two games. Then it hurt the
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
yeah. And the thing
Ben
is, then
Simmons.
it's gonna cost you some money that
Oh
way and getting
yes,
sued because you're
yes,
getting sued.
yes, yes.
Ain't no doubt about you getting sued.
Every lawyer and his mother was out there handing him, calling that guy the next day. I'll
Wow.
represent you. I'll represent
Yeah,
you.
for real. It was on national TV.
Yeah.
So what would you do? Have your cup ever been empty? Have you ever felt like, man, it's just I poured out everything. I'm exhausted. I'm mental fatigue is the one fatigue that I hate because I can't sleep to get rid of it. It takes a long time to come back. So have you ever felt
Yeah.
like you just gave everything you could and you don't quit, but you feel like, man, I done poured out everything.
Yeah,
Nah,
look,
not yet.
look. I mean, the thing is, every day we so fortunate to wake up and open our eyes. I've never felt that my cup was empty.
Mm-mm.
I always felt fortunate to be here, especially as I get older. Because like I said, a lot of people our age, they're not here.
Didn't make it right.
Yeah,
They're
I
not
think about
here.
that a lot too, man.
I think my lowest point in my life was when my dad died. I remember I literally went upstairs and beat my bed up. And I was begging, I was crying, God, why? 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 And when my Lenny and Reggie passed, that hurt like crazy. But when my dad died, it was just a different, I guess because I was a lot younger, I couldn't handle it. And
Yeah,
Tommy knows the 27th of February is the worst day in the world to me, still. And I went to counseling, I guess about 8 years ago for the first time in my life. Not about that, but that came up, and it helped me where I used to wouldn't leave the house on the 27th of February. I say I didn't go to work. I marked off. I didn't go to the store. I wouldn't get in the car. I'm like, I'm not doing nothing today. And now I can go do things and move on. But it took me almost 50 years to get to that point.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't let too much stress me out to that degree.
Yeah.
But trauma, I think, but see, Mike, you hit it on the head. I think a lot of us, we have trauma that we've never dealt with, and we think if we ignore it, it's gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We do, and it. I think we don't realize it takes more courage to do what you did, than to just keep saying I don't need to go, I don't need to go. Because I know it was the same thing when I was much older, but when my dad died, my mom died, so I know what you mean. And I remember when I told Tommy, man, I'm sitting there one day and I'm like, man, I'm an orphan. I
Yeah.
never really thought about it until I was like, wow, you know what I mean? I'm really an orphan,
Yeah.
and it was hard. And it stuck with me for a while because it was impacting me. It was kind of contributing to my depression. I noticed I was getting a little short. Just things were changing. I had to kind of catch it. But most people don't catch it. They take it on their wives, they take it on their kids, or Vincent talked about it. They work until they die because they put everything into their job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we got at the Mint, we got a plaque near the elevator on the first floor for people that have died within service. And I used to always tell my boss, I ain't gonna be on that plaque.
No.
I'm getting out of here.
Yes. Yes.
Because we had a lot of people through different things, through accidents, through heart
Illnesses.
attacks, through a
Right.
lot of different things, and they on that board. I had an old guy that worked for me. And he was like, I mean, old. He was like mid-70s, and I can't. When you gonna retire, man? Because he was out there in them streets and had a 16-year-old daughter, and he 70, almost 80 years old. And I got to make sure she get to college and this, that, and other. He ended up dying
Yeah. Yeah.
within service.
Mm. And he could have retired years ago.
He could have, I even, I mean, when I looked at the years that he had in and his age and the Social Security where he would get and everything,
Mm-hmm.
man, you could have been retired.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people don't know how to wage all that to look and see when am
Yeah,
I coming to work, or how am I, or what? They look at their savings, they look at their 401, they look at their pension, their Social Security, and they don't know how to add that up and see. I'm
yeah,
making pretty much what I was making while I was working. I might be making more,
yeah.
and
Some
they go,
some people
they made their
don't have
job their life, their
don't
livelihood
have a
instead of making the
plan.
job provide their livelihood.
Some people only live for the day.
Yeah,
And
But
they don't think about it's okay to live for the day, but make sure you got a plan in place for the future.
for tomorrow, right?
You
Because
know,
they
it's
won't be here.
that's important because when I was coming up young, I planned on being an old guy. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be old. I'm
Mhm.
gonna make that, I can't guarantee it, but
Right,
so let
but
me
that,
put a plan in place to make sure, you know, if I'm lucky enough to make it onto, that senior citizen list, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not struggling. I'm not eating cat food casserole or in
I
McDonald's wiping off tables.
always said this when I started working on Amtrak. I said, if I got to get them 34 years before I can retire, they going to give me 34 years back at least in the pension. I've always said that, and I'm sticking to that.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mhm.
also, I think because of the way we were raised, because of what we went through in the schoolyard, we do value life more than some people. Some people just they live day by day. I don't,
Yeah,
we always thought of, Vince said it, we always thought about a future. We never thought that, we weren't going to have a future. We weren't going to be successful. But there's a lot of people now who, and Tommy talks about somebody he knew. I know a bunch of kids who they don't think they're going to live to 24. Now
yeah.
Yeah,
they, now
that's
they're
sad.
44.
Well,
Now they're
like we
44.
talked, like we talked about when I was working in Graterford. Half of
Yeah.
them young guys didn't think they were going to live to see 25.
Right.
Yeah,
And
Mhm.
now they're 45. Got to figure out what they
Yeah,
want to do.
25
Yeah.
was a big number for these young kids today. They
yeah,
like, oh, I'm
yeah,
25. What do I do next? You
yeah.
live.
Well,
You
it's
You
different
still,
now.
you
They're
still a
past,
baby.
but
You know what I mean?
they're past 25. The thing about these kids today is they all think they're gonna make fast money. That's the problem. Understand?
That's
They
a
think,
Fast
fact.
money,
and they'll
fast
tell you
money.
that. They'll tell you
If
that.
you don't do the right thing, fast money spend fast.
But
Mm-hmm.
if you're alive to get to see the results of the
Right.
bad,
Right.
they'll tell you in a heartbeat. I see, look, I know people went to jail, not me, because I'm smart. You think you smart, and everybody, the prison's full of people who's the smartest people, but they no longer say 25. They just think they're gonna do this fast money thing. They're not gonna do what we do. I'm not gonna do y'all old heads, y'all know. They think they're just gonna roll into this fast money.
I got a personal good friend whose brother is in their 70s and he out there on the corner
That's
Not
sad.
surprised.
dealing.
I'm not surprised.
That's
You
sad.
know, you'll never get Social Security. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So he didn't boxed himself off into that lifestyle. And it's a shame you got to be out there, you know, hustling at this age.
But it goes back to what I said. Most people who they think, and like a lot of these kids, they think they're in survival mode. And when you think you're in survival mode, you're desperate. You're not thinking about 2
Yeah.
years, 3 years, 4 years,
Right.
5 years. Yeah, you thinking I'm gonna have my fun now. I'm gonna do all this stuff now. You're not thinking about I can do all this now, but tomorrow gonna come.
Well, a lot of people think they won't be able to do stuff when they get older.
But
Which
you gotta
I'm
remember that.
I'm here to tell them that ain't true.
But grandparents are 45 now. It's different.
Yeah.
You're talking about people. They got
Yeah.
grandparents 45. You know, I've had a girl 15, mom 30, and grandma 45.
Yeah.
So
Crazy,
they
yeah.
just they think about today. It's all about today, man. It's like I'm gonna get mine. That's what they say. I'm gonna get mine. You know. So I don't know, man. But another great show.
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
As we close out another show, man, always good to see you guys. We need to figure out next week when we're gonna hook up, when we're gonna get together. All right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Next what's next week Tuesday? What day is that?
Fifth.
Yeah, we're in May. We're in May next week. Man.
Well, that's the day before Mike's birthday.
Okay.
Kevin.
Time.
Y'all do something next weekend?
Good luck this weekend, Time. Or not this weekend. It's Friday.
Tomorrow, my surgery tomorrow. Start surgery.
Oh yeah, well, we gotta wait for you then. Yeah.
No, I'll be all right. Yeah, I'm thinking positive. So.
All right.
If I'm not on next week, then,
Will you actually be in the facility in Abelson?
I'll be there. I'll be there the 29th and 30th prior to the 1st.
Okay. I'll be there the 30th. I'm going to see if I can find you.
Yep. I'll text you, let you know.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Man.
Yep.
All right,
Love y'all.
Love you. Love you, brother. Until next week.
Peace.
All right.
Love y'all.
That's the new song, sir?